Alrighty, it's district breakdown time. There's my good buddy Dixie over there, and we're ready to start diving into some 5A districts, starting with 3-5A Division II, where Argyle did not shock many people when they came in from 4A to 5A and did what they had to do. They didn't lose until they hit that defending champion South Oak Cliff team late in the playoffs. But it seems like they got hit with the graduation bug. How do you feel they're going to do this year in 3-5A Division II, especially with Emerson coming up?
You know, they really did get hit with the graduation bug, and I know when you look at a lot of these legacy programs like South Lake Carroll and Highland Park, obviously they have to graduate every single year. But you know, there's always a couple of players that I look at when I dig deep that like, oh, the sophomore's coming up, or maybe they had a junior backup who got some time in some of the blowout games. For the first time for a while for Argyle, I don't really see that this year. I don't really see that infrastructure, that talent player that I can just look at and go, you know what, they're going to be in good hands. What makes me feel like they're in good hands is the coaching staff. Obviously, the legacy coaching staff and the infrastructure that they've built over there. I think that they've earned the benefit of the doubt. But there's going to have to be some players coming up who really step up. I think what Argyle does best, and you're going to see that carry over from the last couple of years, is that offensive and defensive line. But right now, quarterback, receiver, running back, they don't have any players that really stand out to me as, okay, they're going to step in. And obviously, they lost those two big D linemen. So how is that offensive line going to set up? And now, for the first time, Argyle is, playing up a little bit instead of being the biggest school in 4A Division One. They're one of the smaller schools in 5A Division Two. So, they're looking at playing with these Frisco schools with 500-600 more students than they have. And so I think Argyle might struggle for the first time. And it's kind of that perfect storm, as I feel like you're going to ask me coming up in your next question.
If they're going to struggle, there's another team on the come-uppance, and that's Emerson, who's bringing in players, and they had a lot of youth last year, and they're experienced now. So if they're struggling, does that give Emerson a shot at getting that title?
It absolutely gives Frisco Emerson a shot. If there were people braver than I am, and maybe some of the morning news or Dave Campbell's guys will be braver than I am, I think Frisco Emerson's going to be one of those very trendy picks, because we saw Argyle made it all the way to the state semifinals, and I think whoever comes out of this district has a really good chance to make it that far again this year. So I think a lot of people are going to be raising the flag of Frisco Emerson. Obviously, the big story in the offseason was Mike Hawkins, the all-star quarterback from Allen, transferring over. And according to the Dallas Morning News, one of the teams that voted against his transfer was Argyle. So I think you already see a little bit of bad blood floating in with Argyle and Frisco Emerson. But Frisco Emerson, as you talked about, obviously returned just about everybody. And now you have a quarterback who was an all-district quarterback last year, who is not even going to be – they're probably going to put him at wide receiver, maybe as a backup quarterback. And that just gives them options. And for all of our fans who listen to the DFW podcast, it feels like last year we talked about Frisco Emerson every single week with those fourth quarter comebacks. I know you saw a game and you're like, oh, Digsy, here they go. Here's the fourth quarter comeback. And that kind of tells me that how well coached they were. And we know how well coached they are. And now throw in Mike Hawkins. It is a perfect storm. I think you have to give the benefit of the doubt. This gives me vibes from last year. If we can call back to 4-6A, South Lake Carroll and Byron Nelson. Byron Nelson was that team on the come up, and we had that huge game with Byron Nelson and South Lake Carroll. Well, Byron Nelson finally knocked them off, and as we know, they didn't. And so many times, you get those up and coming teams against the legacy programs, and the legacy programs find a way to win. But these are both very, very good teams. This is maybe a game that we see twice. We may see this in the playoffs, and we may see this game in the regular season. They are that good. I think I'm going to have them joined at the hips in the regional rankings. Like I might have Argyle 3 and Frisco Emerson 4. These are two highly talented teams in the area, and it is going to be fun football. And like you talked about, they bring everybody back. You talk about DJ Shelton, who's going to have to find a job after Mike Hawkins transferred in. Jason Williams, Agape Lawrence, Kylan Evans. We talked about him last year in our campfire as a player to watch, and he's only getting better and he's only getting more talented. Frisco Emerson is loaded from top to bottom. And I think on paper, they're a little bit better than Argyle with all of the question marks with Argyle. Obviously, Argyle has, like I said, probably the best line in the district with Thor Johansson coming back and Weston Cheney. Everybody's talking about Weston Cheney on the recruiting front. So they're going to have that base. But who's gonna throw the ball? Who's gonna run the ball? Those are the questions that Frisco Emerson's already got the answers to.
Yeah, that's the key thing you said in that was on paper. Use the word on paper because I agree with you on paper, but I don't know what's going to happen on the gridiron. And another thing about Emerson last year, Kendall Middle had so much on his plate last year, and he still managed to get through all that, being the THSCA president-elect, getting into his first district play with the new team, and he managed through it. And now he's probably used to whatever the day-to-day grind is, and he'll be ready to go. Now, well, last year we had 3 teams be undefeated going into I believe it was week 8 or 9, or they're all 8-0. But you don't think Independence has that chance to do that this year? Talk to me about your thoughts on Independence and maybe the rest of this district as well.
Yeah, Frisco Independence, I think, is going to take a little bit of a step back. You talk about the graduation bug and Frisco Independence and Frisco Memorial and even Denton as we, drop down there. No more Coco Brown. I mean, a lot of the big players in these of those bottom tier teams have graduated. McKenzie West is probably the big highlight for Frisco Independence coming back. Obviously, they've had a program where they've earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. The team I'm most excited about of the remaining teams is Lake Dallas. I watched that Lake Dallas Frisco Independence game last year, and almost every player I was impressed with Frisco Independence was a senior graduating, and every player for Lake Dallas I was impressed with was a sophomore or junior. So all those kids are coming back, who really stood out in that game to me. You have Cade Bortnam, the quarterback coming back, Dylan Brockle, the running back coming back, and a really good wide receiver in Keandre Henry. So, I mean, they've got all of this talent, the triplets. When you got the triplets coming back, you've got a really good chance. And I think Lake Dallas has the kind of talent that we'd be talking about them a little bit higher if Argyle wasn't Argyle and Frisco Emerson wasn't that team on the rise right now. I think Lake Dallas is going to be a top 10 team. And when we look at 4-5A next week and we start kind of breaking down, how is 3-5A and 4-5A going to look like in the playoffs, Lake Dallas has a really good chance to win that first playoff game against whoever the second team comes out of 4-5A too. I think Lake Dallas is the third best team, and I think they're going to play Argyle and Frisco Emerson very competitively.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I know the schedule won't work in our favor to have 3 8-0 teams down the stretch like last year because they'll play each other a little earlier. But that leaves us with a couple other teams to talk about. We talked on a little bit about Denton and how they're going to be losing Coco Brown, who's probably a good 65 to 70% of their offense. But you also got Creekview and Frisco Memorial to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to be all 3 on the bottom end of the district. Frisco Memorial, they've got Brandon Tullis coming back, the talented running back, and I think in a district where you're going to struggle putting points on the board. This was a very defense heavy district at times. You remember that slugfest with Argyle and South Oak Cliff and the Fog Bowl over in Crowley as we got into the state semifinals. And I think we're going to see a lot of defense out of this district. I don't think we're going to be seeing like we see with Grapevine and Colleyville Heritage, some of these 63 to 48 games. I think you're going to have to win some 21 to 10 games in this district. So when you have a talented player like Brandon Tullis at Frisco Memorial, I think, they're going to be right there with Frisco Independence for the last playoff spot.
Now that we analyzed the teams, give me your top 7 so early predictions. I love it.
I know, but we're going to hold myself accountable to that. I got Argyle 1, Frisco Emerson 2, Lake Dallas 3, Frisco Independence 4, Frisco Memorial 5, Denton 6, and Carrollton Creekview to round out the district at 7.
That sounds good to me. For 4 months away, this is the kind of predictions we like to hear. And we're going to talk about 4-5A Division 2 next week, and I can't wait to hear your opinion on those teams as well. Fort Worth teams against Grapevine and Colleyville guys.
Yeah, make sure you tune in for that because I think there's going to be some hot sports opinions fired off on our district 4-5A. I think we kept it straight to the vest on 3-5A, but 4-5A, I think we're going to have some opinions fired off. So stay tuned for next week's campfire and the district breakdown. I look forward to it, Ward. We'll see you next week.
All right, buddy.